What's up, everybody? It's Jeremy Minnick with the Game Changing Roofer Podcast, a show created to share the stories of roofers who are changing the game in the roofing industry. This show is meant to help roofers build better businesses and better lives. My guest today has a ton of experience in the interior and exterior remodeling space, having worked for multiple remodeling companies over the past 25 years. Before entering the remodeling space, he spent 4 years in the Marine Corp, where he served in the infantry and as a Marine body bearer. About 2 years ago, he launched his newest initiative in Semper Fi, a roofing and remodeling company serving Northern Virginia. Stemming from the Marine Corps, his company puts service, commitment, integrity, and respect at the center of everything that they do. He's here today to share his story and share insights into how he's taken the lessons and strategies learned in the Marine Corps and apply them to his business. This is Nick Bonadies from Semper Fi. Hey, Nick, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. I'm really excited about this podcast. I think you have a great story to share, which is what, of course, this podcast is all about. And so diving just right into that, would love to hear, how you basically got into the Marine Corps, and then after the Marine Corps, how you got into remodeling, and of course, ultimately, how you got into where you are now in being the owner of Semper Fi. So would love to just hear that story and kind of where you came from.
Sure, absolutely. So it's a funny story of how I got into the Marine Corps. I was actually in college at the time. I was in my second year of college, and a friend of mine said he joined the Marine Corps and he was going to buy the recruiter office to drop some stuff off. And I took a ride, and the recruiter must have seen me coming because he put a video in, and that was it. At that point, I said, I'm in. That's how I ended up joining in the Marine Corps. And then from there, I finished up that part of college, and I was off and running after that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so that was basically join the Marine Corps. And then what kind of took place in the Marine Corps? What did you serve? Obviously, you mentioned you were in the infantry as a Marine body bearer as well. Talk a little bit about that. Basically, what was that experience like? I imagine that there was a lot of excitement, a lot of trials and challenges as well in being in the Marines. What was that experience like?
Sure, it was fantastic. I went in initially as infantry, and I stayed infantry the whole time. But I had the opportunity to go over to Marine Barracks, which is in Washington D.C., and I got to serve there as well. And the body bearers was part of the section that I was in, and that is the section or the part of the Marine Corps that does all the burials. Sounds weird over Arlington Cemetery, but it's actually the highest honor that you can give a Marine is when they die in battle, for example. And we were part of doing that. It was a lot of fun. It was a blast. I learned a lot, and I loved my time in the Marine Corps.
That's awesome. I'm just curious, by the way, I have a buddy who is in the Coast Guard and it was part of the Honor Guard as well. He's, I think he's 6'7". Are you tall as well? Is that a requirement to be a Marine body bearer?
No, there is requirements. You have to be with a lot of weight. You have to have certain body features and things. But at the 6'7", it wasn't as high for us. I believe, if I can remember right, it's 5'11" to 6'3" or something. I'm exactly 6 feet. Although The older I get, I think I'm shrinking.
Yep. Well, here at 5'10", yeah, that would have been the where I would have been. I think I'd asked him, I'm like, so what's it take for me to get into the Honor Guard? And he's like, height. Can't change that. So very cool. So they're in the Marine Corps. After that, where did you kind of go after the Marine Corps?
So good question. When I was in the Marines, I got certain security clearances and stuff like that. I was over at the White House a lot. And I always thought that I would end up in some sort of, either law enforcement, DEA, Secret Service, something like that. And I remember my wife asking, she said, can you do something where nobody's shooting at you anymore? As happenstance would have it, I ended up actually getting into the exterior business, which was windows, roofing, siding. They were doing decks and sunrooms as well, and started learning that business and just fell in love with it. I really enjoyed working with people and bettering their houses so they could live better.
That's great. That's great. And what was kind of the work experience in a sense that you got out of the Marine Corps? Where did you start? Did you start in sales? Did you start in the actual installation side of things?
Good question. So yeah, I actually started in sales. I always had people say, "Oh, you'd be good at sales." I didn't really want to be in sales or anything like that, but I enjoyed it. I really liked getting out there, talking to people, and just having fun. And that sort of set the groundwork for everything I'm doing now.
Right. So got out of the Marine Corps, went into sales. How many years did you work kind of as a sales specialist, sales consultant, et cetera? And what kinds of companies did you work for along the way? Was it mainly interior the whole way, or exterior the whole way, or was there a mix of both? And what did you kind of pick up along the way that made you, as we get to obviously Semper Fi and it being born, what did you notice about interior work or exterior work and the industry? What did you like, or what problems did you notice within the industry?
Good question. So I started off in the exterior, which was just, like I said, roofing, siding, windows, that type of thing. Excuse me. And this was in the mid 90s basically. So it was a different world back then. There was no internet, there was no reviews or anything like that. And it was basically like the old tin men that you might hear about, where they would go in and they would sort of high pressure close people and things. I didn't necessarily like that part, but I loved working with people. From there, the transition happened where a friend of mine that owned a full line remodeling company came alongside me and said, "Hey, I would love for you to come work for our company." And he brought me in and taught me basically everything about the interior business, which is kitchens, bathrooms. We were doing a lot of additions, basements, and things like that. And that sort of set the groundwork for the next many years because I fell in love with the interior side of things.
Gotcha. And is that something, by the way, that you still do with Semper Fi? Do you do interior, or is it mainly exterior modeling focused company?
It's mainly exterior. It's mainly roofing, um, a lot of storm damage, siding, windows. We do a lot of roof repairs and stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. What was the transition? So you started in interior, but what was obviously liked it, but when did you begin to enter more into the exterior space and start to go, well, like I like this, and maybe I like it a little bit more than the interior? What was it? What time was that, or what made that kind of what illuminate for you?
So good question. If we fast forward many years, I had worked for this one particular company for, I want to say 10 or 11 years. And then at one point I was running the whole company. And then I went off, I was getting ready to start my own company and was brought on by another company and asked, to do the same thing. So I came in for that company and ran part of the company. Um, and then I started my own remodeling company. It was full line remodeling. It was kitchens, bathrooms, additions, sort of design build work, which was a lot of fun. And in that company, it would have been, I don't know, let me see. It would have been 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. We started doing some exteriors. And all of a sudden, I just fell in love with the exteriors. I loved, the roofing and the siding and the windows. So slowly we made a transition.
Gotcha. Great. Great. And so what eventually led into Semper Fi? Tell the story of Semper Fi. How did that get started? How long ago did it get started? And what's been the journey?
So good question. I have a full line remodeling company. When I say I have, we don't actually run business through it anymore, but that was my old company. I had a business partner in that company. But I always wanted to support military. I always gave to the military charities and foundations to support our veterans. And I came up with the idea that I wanted to have a company that was centered around military, first responders, and people like that. And what we did is we designed a company. So we spun a brand new company off that did just exteriors, which is Semper Fi Exteriors. And we started the whole premise of the company was to give back to military charities, first responders, EMTs, things like that. And that sort of drove us from there.
That's awesome. Wow. The what is and this is, maybe we can kind of dive into the meat of it all. In the military, I'm sure you learned a lot about discipline, hard work, and as I talked about in the introduction, commitment, integrity, respect. I mean, these great disciplines, these great values and virtues. Talk a little bit about your time in the military. What were the lessons? What were the virtues and the disciplines that you learned there? And then how did that translate into your starting Semper Fi and the culture that you're creating at the company today?
All right, cool. That is a big question, by the way. So the part about the military or the Marines when I was in it, I'll give you an example. There's a thing there that's called the confidence course. And what happens is when they bring you out initially and show it to you, but you don't actually run this confidence course. The confidence course is just what it is. You have to have a lot of confidence to do it. But slowly but surely, they start to build you up. And, month after month and week after week, what happens is by the end, you run this confidence course And by the time you're done running it, you look back at it and say, well, that was so easy. So what happens is the discipline of just doing a little bit each day, a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more is one of the keys that got me to where I'm at today. Because then you look back and you say, wow, how did I get to where I'm at today? It's just by that little consistent sort of that effect of doing a little bit each day and just being very consistent with it. But the discipline as well, the discipline of when I was in the Marines, you wake up at a certain time, you make your bed and your rack at the same time, and the little things of cleaning and shooting your weapons, and just everything that you do is regimented in the Marines. And what I found is that I could put my mind to something, and as long as I was disciplined with it, I mean, great things could happen.
Right. Right. That's yeah, that's such a great anecdote about the confidence course. I mean, I think in some ways, even business has a bit of a confidence course that ends up weeding out those who aren't confident, maybe, or aren't committed to the little things. I mean, that's you hear that statistic all the time about how most small businesses fail within the first 5 years. And I think that's just a testament to one, that and it is really hard. It is hard to run a good, profitable business. But two, I think why so many people fail is they maybe didn't expect and anticipate how important the dedication to the little things day in, day out is going to be in achieving the big and long-term goals. What is it about Semper Fi that thus far you feel like has really, what is it about the virtues or the cultural pillars maybe that you have in the company? And by the way, do you have cultural pillars that you kind of talk to the team about all the time? And if so, what are those and what do they kind of mean to the team?
Sure, absolutely. So what we did is right when Semper Fi started a couple of years ago, we pulled the team together and I mean, everybody in the company knew what we stood for because we're a mission-based company. And what I mean is, I'll give you an example. Even when we go out to meet with somebody for the first time, we donate $25 in their name to one of the military charities that supports veterans, whether they buy from us or not, whether they have us do work, as a thank you. Just for allowing us into their home. So everybody in our company understands who we are and what we stand for. We're made up of veterans and non-veterans. We love to hire veterans and employ them. But we pulled the whole company together and we came up with a purpose statement, which is a little bit different than a mission statement, and also the core values. And what we do is we hire to these core values. I hate to say it this way, fire to the core values. But this way, it's never me saying, or any of our managers saying, well, you didn't do a good job here. It's more about, hey, are you holding to the core values? And if you're not, which one are you not holding to? And the question is, can you keep that standard or can you get back up to that standard? So yeah, we definitely have pillars in the company.
What are those core values?
Good question. They're pretty simple. I actually brought a piece of paper here.
The cheat sheet.
I figured on the spot. Somebody asked me the other day and I froze, So our purpose statement, by the way, just to tell you, is serving others with honor, integrity, and courage. And because everything that we do for the company is not, this is going to sound weird, but we are not in business to install windows, roofing, siding. And don't get me wrong, we are. But that is just the vehicle to be able to get the monies coming in the door to be able to give it away to the veterans. And don't get me wrong, we do phenomenal at those things, but that's our vehicle. And we do it better than anybody else, in my opinion. The core values, by the way, are integrity, be exceptional, winning attitude, and team player. So we have 4 core values. These were developed by our team. I was in the room, but I was very quiet. And then there's bullet points underneath each one. I'll give you an example. Integrity, one of the things I like is it says, one of the defining points is doing what's right when no one is looking, right? So this is, integrity might not be a great example, but winning attitude, what does that mean? If we leave it open to interpretation, then somebody on the team could say, well, I think it means this. Somebody else could say, I think it means this. So we've defined it with those bullet points. And this is up on our wall, by the way. If you walk in our conference room, and it's not framed or anything, it's actually written out on big sheets of paper in marker. We left it like that on purpose. So as you walk in, it kind of blows around and stuff, even though it's attached to the wall. And we talk about them all the time because that's who we are as a company.
That's fantastic. Can you just restate those really quick? You said integrity, winning attitude, and there were 2 more.
Yep. Integrity, winning attitude, be exceptional, and team player.
Yeah, I love that on all fronts. It's interesting how you defined integrity, because we actually basically defined it the same way with one of our core values here with our team, which is accountability. And that's actually kind of how we framed it. We basically said taking care of the little things and the attention to detail, even when no one's watching. Um, but
Very cool.
but it's, yeah, I mean, that basically same ideas obviously being communicated there, that even when no one's looking, you've got to stay true, to the details as if they were. Beyond that, though, I love how you defined winning attitude. Talk a little bit about be exceptional and team player. What does that kind of mean within the company as well?
Sure, absolutely. For example, be exceptional is treat yourself and others in a remarkable manner. So that's one of the bullet points underneath there. Be outstanding in everything you do. Always leave others in a better place than when you met them. So we have 3 bullet points underneath this. It's meant to be simple on purpose, by the way, but that sums up in our minds what winning attitude is. And even for like integrity, for example, it's doing what's right when no one's looking, but it's also the second bullet point is be honest with yourself and others. And I remember when that one came up, it's so easy to make excuses to ourselves, or for lack of better words, lie to ourselves. Oh, it's okay to do that, that type of thing. And be honorable is one of the bullet points underneath there as well. So that defines integrity for us. And then team player is willing to go above and beyond. It's working with others to create success. This is actually my favorite one. It's one body for one cause. So we are made up of a whole bunch of people, but we're all one body and we're all going towards the same cause.
I love that idea. And I'm just curious as well, how, I feel like when people talk about team cultural pillars and things like that, everybody, for the most part, on a website, right, they have their mission statement or maybe a purpose statement or the about us section of the website. They talk a little bit about on the homepage or the about page, here's what makes us different. But internally, truly, what have you found has been, so anyways, here's what I'm trying to say. There's oftentimes, though, a gap between what the company says or what the mission statements are, and then actually every single person on the team knowing them, taking them to heart, adopting them, being reminded about them constantly. So what do you all do? What have you found effective to continue to make sure that every person on the team, from yourself all the way down to the front line, understands that these are the cultural pillars and is reminded them? How do you guys basically continue to reiterate that daily, weekly, monthly?
It's a great question. It actually started with when we first set these up. See, these are not on our website. They're not on our Facebook page. They're in none of our marketing literature or anything like that. So to the people that look outside inward into our company, they're not anywhere. We may put them out there one day, like listed on our website or something, but we did that on purpose because we internally in the company, we talk about how these are who we are. It's not who we want. Yes, it's who we want others to think we are, but if we're living it, they'll see it, if that makes sense. But to get people to sort of, I don't want to say buy in, but to sort of always be living these, we've done a lot of fun things. For example, I remember when we first started, we made everybody in the company memorize them is one thing. It's funny, I have a cheat sheet, but but one of the things that we did is I would remember every single meeting that we had as a company or with even in our departments, I would do gift cards and things like that. And I would call on people, what's this one? What's this one? What's this bullet point? And so we made it fun so that people wanted to remember them, but we talk about them all the time. Sometimes in meetings, now everything because of COVID-19 is Zoom meetings and stuff like that. Even though our guys are in and out of the office and our people are in and out of the office, even on the Zoom meetings, it'll be like, all right, what's this one? And, they like to answer them. But we sit down, whether it's me or the other department heads, we sit down with our people and we actually go through them and say, okay, are you living up to this one? Tell me what you're doing, for this one here. Sometimes we'll pull our team together and say, okay, everybody go around the room and tell me something you've done for a homeowner about this one, that type of thing.
Right. I love that.
Everyday type of thing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. I'm just curious. Do you have you ever read Donald Miller and Building a Story Brand?
No, I haven't.
That's wild. I'm like crazy. I can't believe that you haven't read that, because based on just what you just said, that's something he talks about all the time. So Donald Miller is this kind of national brand consultant. He's worked with everybody from the biggest to the biggest, like franchises, corporations, institutions, etc., all the way down to providing courses and training lessons for, one-man bands and small businesses, etc. But in his book, Building a Story Brand, what the idea is that he basically has systematized how to tell a story, or more specifically, how to tell the story of your company. And it actually comes from, he like prefaces it with, if you read this book, I'm going to ruin every movie you ever watch for you, because he's like, I'm giving you essentially what the formula of script writers is for coming up with a story and a storyline, like the exact pieces and parts that they consider as they write it, to have a character who encounters a problem and then meets a guide who becomes, kind of the way to success, and they're able to overcome obstacles and barriers and finally achieve the successful outcome at the end of the story, right? And so that's how most stories go, right? You have a character, he has conflict, he needs somebody to help him get through that, and so on. So anyways, that's the book he has written. It's called Building a Story Brand. It kind of talks about that process. But he also talks about a lot of things related to that. And one of them is, I remember recently he said, he was telling the story about how back when he first started, I think with Story Brand is the name of the company, they had, let's just say, 10 team sort of cultural pillars or points. And one day he was sitting in the conference room and they sort of did a test, and he said, one by one, everybody, I'm going to send you out to our videographer and I want you to talk to him and basically recite those 10 cultural pillars and points. So about 15 people, one by one, take their turn. And at the end, he goes out and he says, so how'd it go? And he said, it was terrible. They only got 3 at most, I think it was. And he was like, oh man, and so he was talking to a friend at lunch shortly thereafter. And the friend advised him, he's like, look, the human brain can only handle remembering 3 things. Like 3 is this sort of magic number for the human brain. And so if you want people to remember these, pick 3 to maybe 4 or 5, I would say upwards of 5 cultural points, and then drum them home over and over and over again. And so I love that, sometimes when people come up with cultural points, again, they come up with 18 bullet points that are supposed to be remembered. There's no way you'll remember it, right? You need 3 or 4 things that you can stick to, maybe some bullet points to clarify what that means. But yeah, so great to hear that you're drumming that into the culture every single day. How else? Oh, and he talks about too, and I guess that's what stuck out to me, is he gave gift cards as incentivizations. He would walk around with $100 bills around his company, and if you got it, you got the $100 bill. If not, moving on to the next guy. So I think that's a brilliant, idea. How else have you all seen? So team fun days, you reiterate it probably all the time at team meetings and things like that. Any other ways that you found to be helpful in reminding people about those cultural points?
Well, I think, a lot of times when people do reviews on our company and stuff, reviews, a lot of times nowadays, reviews show up online. Sometimes people will email us, or even a handwritten letter, but I love to find them. Sometimes they show up in our reviews. So for example, somebody might write, oh, I love Semper Fi Exteriors. They did a great job. They are so full of integrity and honesty, or whatever they write. And when that happens, we highlight that in the core values, because they're pulling stuff out that we are living every single day. So there's another way. But I guess the other way is, it's just constantly working on it and reminding it, because what happens is, if we don't, well, me as the business owner, let me bring it to me. If I don't bring this up and work with our people often, then what happens is, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. And oh, if Nick's not working on it, basically, if it's not important to him, it's not important to me. So I've made it, probably the number one thing is, I've made it really important to me. And because of that, it sort of rolls over to everybody else in the company.
Right, right. By the way, how did you come up with these, right? So what was it that led you to that journey? I mean, like, in a sense, big picture, but also even like small picture. I mean, how did you sit down in a sense and come up with these 4 points?
Wow, it was a chore. I mean, it was a lot of fun. So initially what happened is, I've had other businesses in the past. And when I started Semper Fi Exteriors, I worked with a business coach. And I actually had a couple of different ones. And that's where I got the idea of doing these core values and things like that. But we brought the whole team together. Some of it was in smaller groups, some of it was in bigger groups, because if we co-created this together, if we worked on this together, then they would have buy-in. I'm not going to write something to shove it down their throat. Plus, I don't look at this as my company. This is their company. So I brought everybody together. We would bring lunch in and we sit. Usually we do 2-hour increments because, well, most people can't sit that long, but if I had lunch there, they were willing to do that.
Right.
And what we would do is basically we'd come up with a whole bunch of ideas. So for example, for the 4 points, we might have had 50 or 60 different things up there, if that makes sense. And then we would vote on them. And then we'd narrow the list, narrow the list, narrow the list. And then sometimes when we got together again, somebody would add a couple more. But after probably 2-3 weeks of meeting, 3 or 4 times total, we ended up with these 4, and these rose to the top. And then the whole team, it was pretty neat. The whole team agreed and said, hey, those are the ones.
Right. That's fantastic. I love the idea too about the collaboration of the team getting that buy-in, because that is so key. I think a lot of times you made 2 great points. The first one is that you have made them important to yourself, right? And that's basically that servant leadership, the leadership that's serving from the top down to, again, the front line. But
Yeah.
2 is you've also incorporated the team in the process for creating what's important to Semper Fi. And so now they're committed to it. They feel like they had a helping hand in it. It's sort of like how sometimes maybe you're coming up with all the ideas all the time, but you just simply ask a question, somebody else comes up with the same idea and you go, that's a great one, but there is some aspect that is super powerful, right, about the teamwork there. So great on that front. What else have you noticed about how has that helped to drive the business forward? So obviously in the service, it has helped, but do you have any kind of testimonials or stories from certain sales reps or team members, or even other stories about customers who have really seen how you all have demonstrated integrity or a winning attitude or being exceptional or being a team player? What are some of the stories that maybe you guys talk about as a company all the time that really reflect those 4 pillars?
It's a good question. I think what overall with those 4 pillars, I think what we get feedback from our people that we do work for more than anybody else is about how we give back to the military veterans and the communities and stuff like that. And that's sort of overarching, because remember, that's sort of our purpose in this whole thing. So a lot of that comes out in that, if that makes sense. For example, when we donate, it's not unusual for us to get notes from people and stuff like that, but I have people, I'm very, very active in our business. So when we're doing projects, I don't always get to stop by, but I like to call people and talk to them. And so a lot of it is when they're talking to me or when they're emailing just back and forth with just me saying, hey, this person, I had one the other day on our office manager, and our office manager, Jennifer, actually runs our whole business. And we get them all the time, but I had one from her the other day that just said she is awesome. She said she represents you so well as a company, loves the company, and sort of went into it. And she hit several of our different pillars, the lady that was telling me this, just in the course of conversation. I had another one yesterday from one of our sales reps that this lady, when I was talking to her, couldn't say enough. She said, they represent you so well. What the people that we do work for have I guess the easiest way to say it is in people's minds. I think because we're known, I was in the Marines, right? Semper Fi Exteriors, which is the Marine Corp motto, Semper Fi. They have a tendency to sort of put us up here, if that makes sense. So a lot of times we're referenced and they say, hey, you guys are representing the Marines well. Even though we have no ties to the Marines, they put us up higher, is a higher standard, I guess you could say. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
it does. No, it does. Those are fantastic stories. And I'm also actually, as kind of a pivot into, you mentioned at the beginning of the call how your company, every single time you knock on a door / I should say more importantly, meet with a customer, whether or not you close the job or win any work from it, you're donating. You said, is it $25? Is that right? Every single time? To sort of a military organization or maybe a charity of choice, et cetera. I guess what I'm curious to know more about is what impact has that had in building a really strong community and client base? In other words, I mean, that's something I've never heard from any other contractor or roofing company. I've never heard another contractor or roofing company say, we're a mission-driven organization, not in the way that you're referencing it, right? They might say we have a mission and we're on one, but that's not the same as being a mission-driven organization. So how have you seen the fruits of that branding? Because that's what that is, right? I mean, it's coming from the goodness of your heart. It's the charity. It's the desire to give back. But no doubt that has had some tremendously positive branding implications around Semper Fi. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how do you prioritize the giving back? What have you heard from customers about that? How has it helped you to grow the brand and the business since starting?
Great question. So I think, when we first started this, doing this, and we started it early on, we didn't really, it wasn't on our website, it wasn't out to the public. It was just something that we did internally in the company. And we would tell the people that we're doing work for that we were doing it. There was a form that they filled out when we met with them that had their name, their address, and things like that. And then we made a $25 donation to, again, one of the military charities that supports veterans. Well, during that, what happened is now it's grown, because when I first started it, my thought was, oh my goodness, are we going to go out of business by donating too much money too fast?
Right.
um, and but what it's become is it has become our people love this. They come back and they come back with the forms, and they're like, okay, we're two more. And so the people in our company, especially our front line that's meeting with homeowners, are really, really excited. Like, they don't miss anybody. I mean, they bring these forms back. And it's really, really exciting. We're actually getting ready to do a little bit of a different twist on it, where we're going to start showing the checks. Basically, this is probably be on our Facebook page. This is something that we just thought about this morning, where we're going to start showing the checks and saying, "Hey, we gave this much away just by inspecting roofs." To us, it doesn't matter if they buy from us or not. Which, again, that was a different twist in the beginning because I had to wrap my brain around that. I wanted to do it, but I was scared.
Right.
I've also, one of the things I learned from the Marines is, fear is not real, if that makes sense.
Right.
Just as a side note for you, it's something that's perceived in your mind that actually hasn't happened yet. So I thought, you know what, we're doing this. And so over and over and over again, that's what we've been doing. And we give on the backside, when we're done with projects as well. But it's really neat, and we've built a following. The majority of people that we do work for obviously are in our local community here, but we do a lot of work for all different military branches. We do a lot of work for first responders, and oddly enough, again, our purpose statement is serving others with honor, integrity, and courage. We found that even like teachers, for example, we do a lot of work for teachers, and it's because they serve their kids, they serve the school, they serve the community. So anybody out there that serves is really who our main client base is. And they rally around this cause. And my hope is that they give to different charities as well. I'll give you a great example. I just put a GoFundMe out there for veterans, basically because of COVID-19. I've got a lot of friends that have lost jobs and are having trouble paying their bills. Well, together we can do a whole lot more. And I put it up on our Facebook page, and actually I boosted it, so I'm hoping that some people give to it. So it's all about rallying the community around to give back to our veterans. They've served our country and they've done a lot. Obviously, they're near and dear to my heart, you can tell.
Right. Right. Man, that's so many powerful points all throughout there. And I guess I'm interested too to hear as well. You mentioned basically so many people have rallied around this cause and this mission. In particular, too, has it helped you? And I don't mean to come at this too hard from the standpoint of how has it helped to grow the business, because obviously that's part of it. But there really is that desire from a mission perspective. But just naturally, has it helped you to, in a sense, win business from veterans? Has it helped you to get your foot into the door on maybe military bases or projects or owners of companies who are military in their background? How has it kind of helped you, and what have you seen be the fruit of rallying yourself and your team around this mission?
That is a great question. And what has happened, I didn't expect to happen. So absolutely, it helps us win business. And again, we didn't set it up for that. And there's a strange dichotomy, I guess. With all things being equal, say they're talking to 5 different companies, right? If they're comfortable with all the companies and they like all the companies, maybe all the companies are in their local community. At the end of the day, the majority of people we find end up coming and doing business with us because they like to rally around the cause that we have. They like to rally around our mission. And there is some, I think, because we give, in their name, they feel like they want to help us as well, and they want to continue and help build the brand and the cause and stuff like that. So yeah, that I did not expect when we started giving. It just wasn't one of those things that I guess I didn't see it, but it has really helped.
Right.
And it's been great for them and for us and for the community. And we get people all the time that are calling us up. They refer us to their military friends, for example, and we get asked about this. So
It's it's just, yeah, amazing and wild to think about the intersection. I feel like you have so many helpful things working, and you're driving a huge part of that, but just so many helpful things working for you and Semper Fi around this mission. Like in the one sense too, even geographically being located in Northern Virginia is just a great spot, obviously, for people to rally around that cause. So there's that going on. Number two, it's again, it's such a niche specific aspect to your brand. So it's not to say that you're a company that only serves the military. And so I love how you've taken that rallying point around veterans and around the military, but turned it a little bit more into, but really anybody who serves, anybody who's a first responder or on the front lines and serving um, our country in a sense, is a part of this mission and this rallying point. And it's such an inviting, truly, like it's such an inviting thing into your business. And it really helps, I'm sure, for your sales. And maybe you can just talk about that a little bit more. I mean, have you ever had anybody, one of your sales reps and teams meeting with these clients? I mean, has anybody really turned it down? I mean, maybe there've been a couple, but I'm sure the response rate to this all, I mean, do they have to, basically my question is, do they have to sign anything to sort of approve that this happens? Or do you all just do it anyways, that you donate $25 kind of no matter what?
yeah, it's just done anyways. They don't have
Yeah.
to prove or anything like that. It's one of those things where if they meet with us, it's our thank you is really what it is. So yeah, they don't have to prove anything. And talking about sort of the sales and the branding and everything. The other thing I guess I never. This will show you some of this I stumbled into, if you can tell by mistake, right? So I'd love to say I'm the smartest guy around. It's not the case. Even the name Semper Fi Exteriors, for me, I did it because I love the Marines. I was in the Marines. I sort of live and breathe that stuff today. I miss it. I wish I was still in, that type of thing. But the name, people know, at least in our area here, that Semper Fi is, always faithful. That's the Marine Corps motto. So they know that typically they know somebody that started the business or the owner or something was part of the Marines. And we get asked about that all the time. And a lot of times we get people that call and say, we're not talking to anybody else. We're talking just to you because we know that you were in the military. People like to support veteran-owned companies, which, again, I like that, but I didn't realize the amount of people that would rally around that.
Right. Right. It's one of the things too I love about this is, for people who are listening to this podcast, they might be thinking a little bit of, holy cow, that's incredible that Nick has been able to do that, to get everyone to rally around this point related to the military and the Marines. But I wasn't in the military, right? So am I out of luck here that this doesn't work for me? But I think the biggest takeaway is that, no, you're not out of luck at all. What you have done, Nick, is you've taken a part of who you are in your story, which again, what a huge part of what this whole podcast is about, is sharing stories. You've taken a huge part of your life and your story and focused that and translated it and embedded it into your business, so that those things aren't disconnected, as if to say your personal life and your personal story is totally disconnected from where you spend a huge majority of your time every day, which is of course at work and in business, et cetera. So you're constantly serving, I'm sure, outside of work and at work as well. And so for anybody listening, I think it's about finding that element of your story that translates into maybe service or a uniquely differentiating factor that you can bring to the community around you. And has this helped connect you to other owners as well? Like, has this kind of helped you to continue to foster ideas internally within the company about, wow, this worked, this really latched onto the community and it's connected me to, have you seen that fruit as well, that it's really brought a lot of great business or sort of motivational or mindset relationships as well?
Yeah, it sure has. And for example, some of the things that we're getting ready to start doing is we're getting ready to start doing things like taking donations so that we can help veterans. We're getting ready to, for veterans that need to fix their home up and stuff, not for us to do the work. Maybe they have a bathroom that doesn't work or whatever. I love, for example, we're getting ready to do well, with COVID-19, it got pushed down a little bit, although it looks like we're going to be doing it all on webinar type of thing. but love to help veteran business owners start their businesses and teach them everything that I know. Not that I know everything, but I know a little bit, and the neat thing is, what you were talking about there, yeah, I have my background, right? I was in the Marines. I did what I did in the Marines. I've got a passion for veterans, sort of built a company around Marines and military, but it's really basically a cause marketing or a mission driven type of thing, and I'll give an example. When I had my full line remodeling company, I always went in with a sport coat or dressed up nice. Now it's really more me. I mean, you can see the tattoos and everything. They're all Marine Corp tattoos and stuff. There's Semper Fi, for example. But
Right.
so, but anybody can do that with their own background. So I'll give you an example. Somebody maybe maybe they're maybe a lady that was knocked around by somebody, for example, that domestic violence or something. Maybe she could rally around, starts a business and rallies around, giving back to women's shelters, or somebody that was homeless, and then got themselves out of that. Maybe they rally around that. It's about just supporting whatever it is that's their cause. And what I found is that people will rally around that, and because they want those people to succeed and they want to help those causes. So it's, I think the term is cause marketing, which again, I didn't really know what we were doing when we started it, but I think that anybody can do that because people love to help other people. They love to give to charities. They love to rally around and help and support, that type of cause, whatever that cause is.
Right. Right. It makes perfect sense. And there's sort of two elements I feel like about all these kinds of stories that you can find in the community and then insert into your business. And the first one is that, everybody loves, in a sense, almost like a good everyman story. And what I mean by that is where you can see how what you're doing, as it relates to you. Like it's so common. The problem that you're solving is so common to mankind sort of in general that everybody can rally around it. And so it's broad enough to sort of include everyone and yet focused enough that it catches the attention of especially the people who it's most important to. And the second thing I feel like as well that is incredible about your story is that you're solving a problem. And that's actually one of the things I love that Donald Miller always talks about is that, your customers aren't listening until you start talking about their problems or their pain points and how you solve them. But as soon as you start talking about their problems or their pain points, now you have their attention. And I'll relate that actually too. There was a guy we worked with who about a year ago was on a call with him. And he was telling me this story about how he was going through New York City. He was just walking down the road, and just a gentleman on the side of the road who probably was looking to sort of play some sort of mind trick so as to, get a buck or two, I'm not sure what it was, but sort of talking to him said, "Hey there, wow, you got some nice shoes. Hey there, you got some nice suit on there." And then he said, "But your nose is so big." and this guy said, and I wasn't really paying him any attention as he complimented me, but as soon as he started talking about my problem, my attention turned to him right away. And as with the homeowners, that's what you're trying to do with the roof. You're trying to showcase the pain point of the problem. But what I love about this cause is that you're almost giving them another thing that's a problem and a solution for it. And hey, you're not paying for it. No sweat off your back. I just want you to know that you're helping us help others and solve a problem. And so it's just so powerful, the effect that comes from that. So great. Any other advice, Nick, that you have for roofing companies or contractors in general about team culture? If there was kind of maybe one thing that you feel like has really helped you guys to basically take your culture to the next level, what has that thing been?
That's a great question. So if I go back to the Marines, and I don't know if people that were not in the Marines or in some sort of elite, I'm not talking about military in general, but maybe it's a ranger or something. If they're in some sort of close knit or elite group, Marines will die for one another. I could have somebody I was in the Marines with, 30 years ago call me up and say, "I need you to come right now," and I'd be there. I drop everything. And oddly enough, even Marines that don't know other Marines, if I was walking down the street and saw a Marine having a problem, we would jump in and help. So what happens is I learned, I guess, or it was beat into me. No, I'm just kidding. That what happens is you die for your brothers and sisters, and in the Marines. And I've transferred that over to the business. I've somewhat tried to create that culture here, but it's also the servant leadership. We empower people in the company. So our people are empowered to make decisions. And you know what? They make the wrong decisions sometimes. My goal is that if they make the wrong decisions, that they learn from them. But how do they learn to make the right decisions without making the wrong ones, if that makes sense? We had 2 major wrong ones this week, right? I talked to them and they're going to be great. They're moving forward. So it's the culture is that everybody's empowered. They're going to make their own decisions. Even if they come to me to try to make a decision, I kick it back to them and I make them make it,
Right.
And by doing that, they're growing closer and closer and closer. And then they're not looking over their back, worried about being fired because they make the wrong decision. Or if I make the wrong decision, they're going to verbally beat me up or something like that. So that's part of it there. And the other thing is, it's that servant leadership, even though it's my company, and everybody knows that, when I go meet with homeowners, a lot of times they don't know that. I might be the guy picking out the trash, picking up the trash, putting it in the dumpster on a job site, and somebody will have to tell the homeowner, oh, that's the owner of the company, So for me, we're all on the same level. I am no better than anybody else. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people in the company that are much, much better at what they do. They're smarter than me. I'll give you an example. Accounting is not my thing. So,
Right.
The people that do the accounting in our company, that's their thing. They're much smarter than that. So we've rallied around, and we understand that we're all a piece of the puzzle, or I guess you could say a link in the chain. And together, it's a whole lot stronger than just one person. And that's sort of, I guess, maybe that's not answering your question, but that's sort of what encompasses our culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that idea. It's almost just kind of visualizing it for everybody that's watching the video. I think it's Mike Krzyzewski from Duke who always talked about, but it might've been somebody else, one of the coaches, Dean Smith or Roy Williams from North Carolina, I think, but they talk about the 5 fingers on a hand, and that those 5 fingers, when separated, are a little bit weaker, but when together turned into a fist, moving forward. And that's how you got to move against the other team, is 5 fingers on a hand turned into a fist, all one, all together. And that's what you're doing with your company, is everybody's empowered from the bottom to the top to make decisions, be confident, the confidence course, right? To be confident in those decisions, even though sometimes in the confidence course, as you just mentioned this week, maybe they trip and fall, right? It's not always a smooth ride, but always pushing forward. So wonderful. If, we've hit on a ton of different stuff, Nick, obviously related to culture, related to team building, related to growing culture within a company, et cetera, and a number of other things. But especially if somebody wanted to learn more about Semper Fi, maybe reach out to you to ask about team building or culture and how to do those things within their company, where should they go to find you and to get in touch?
Great question. Our website's probably the best, and it's just semperfiexteriors.net. And that's SEMPERFI exteriors.net. And it's got all of our information there. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, or help anybody out. It's what I love to do. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Nick. And yeah, it has been a true pleasure.
Jeremy, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Take it easy.